Black empowerment, it doesn't mean we're blaming our people for the problems in the first place. Like a lot of our people have been taught that self-empowerment somehow means that we're ignoring the problem and pretend that we started the problem. We're not doing that. We're literally saying the problems will keep happening, and especially if we spend our life staring at it. Yeah. I'm gonna just stare at this daggone exit sign. I can't get around it, and I don't know how else to avoid it. I'm gonna just stare at it. That's the design. Yeah. If you learn, and I had 20 years of teaching the sociology of race. Right. If you learn about various cultures and collectives of people around the world, what it means to understand historical and current oppressions, yes, without that being synonymous with their identities, with them understanding what they're doing to develop. As Black folks, we have to understand that for ourselves. What you waiting for, the government change? I'm serious right now. Is that what y'all waiting for? We're going to get rid of capitalism. Oh, let's pretend that's going to happen, okay? So meanwhile, what you going to do? What y'all going to do? You going to get rid of capitalism. Okay, let's play that game. What y'all going to do then? What y'all going to do?
You're going to work around.
Okay. And let's say you get rid of capitalism and you have another economic system.
Just since you said what we'll do, I think that we can do two things at the same time, right? I think we can study the issues and we can also build things, right?
Okay.
And I mean, I would say I'm evident of that, but I think we can do both, and I think both are necessary.
Okay, but you didn't explain what that means, though. So show me people who are doing both. Show me people who are.
I just said me.
Show me people who are building.
I think Garvey studied the problem and also came up with conclusions.
There is no such thing as a human who is building an entrepreneurship and dismantling capitalism.
Oh no, I'm talking about you. I'm talking about as far as studying the issues, even talking about the issues, but also putting them into action.
We have centuries of Black folks studying problems of exploitation of labor. That's centuries. That's how we have to do. But that's not the same thing as dismantling the capitalism people keep criticizing and then empowering our people. You're just not going to do that.
Well, when you mentioned Marcus Garvey, just sparking an idea that you can do without the system and build yourself. No, he mentioned Marcus Garvey.
Marcus Garvey was a Black capitalist, and you have 4 UNIA members sitting in the room.
No, what I'm saying is building yourself up. Marcus Garvey didn't build himself up?
He did, but he built himself up as a Black capitalist based on Booker T. Washington's Up from Slavery as one of the foundations of his work. He only spoke against capitalism for the same reason most Blacks did back then and now. That's because they're thinking of Karl Marx's Communist Manifesto. And that's the only reason why.
When you say capitalism, you can look at it in many different ways.
Well, I talked about that already. I talked about how that's not synonymous with exploitation of labor. But unfortunately, most Black folks do not look at capitalism in many different ways. They think about it as synonymous with exploitation. Mm-hmm. And I've explained that. Yeah, it's not synonymous. Like I said earlier, it's based on what Adam Smith explained in mode of production. Yeah. And that's why I tell Black folks, recognize when you're wasting time on your own dime. You're literally the only one paying for it, because non-Blacks, they not wasting time on their dime on this stuff. They'll protest with you, and they're still building wealth when they get back to what they're doing.
We're trying to buy back people's time, and so they have that time to heal and to, we have to decolonize our minds before we can even move forward and build any type of institutions that are, meaningful for us. And so the brother over here talked about schools and how they contribute to capitalism, because you're going into school taught that you have to get good grades so you can get a good job, and then you have to go to college, and you come out of college with hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of debt. Look. And so you can't tell me that the system is
I can't keep Black folks walking around with a list of oppressions. Like I said earlier,
but I asked you first, what did you feel about the bartering system? Because the system as it stands does not work for us as Black folk.
There's various economic development approaches. If you read Black economists, even African economists born and raised in African lands, there's various approaches, right? But if Black folks are going to keep talking about being colonized in the mind, are you the one colonizing your mind at this point? Because that's something that we have to self-reflect on. What are we teaching in our families at this point? Because if you are not,
you can't just disregard that.
So you
I
can't-
actually can. I don't want to hear about studies because I'm a sociologist and a criminologist who knows. And if you're going to be mad at me, I recommend you take that off on the oppressors that you're so mad about and not a black woman.
You don't care about studies now.
Well, don't be confused because if the studies, there's a reason why the studies about black folks focus on oppression and not solutions. If you don't understand how that's a form of brainwashing, then you've ignored everything I've said in the past hour.
You claim you're Africanist, you're going to get your mind back. Black and I'm proud. Black and I'm proud. When you claim you're Africanist, you're going to get your mind back. Black and I'm proud. Claim you're African. Black and I'm proud. I'm telling you. When you claim you're Africanist, you're going to get your mind back. Black and I'm proud. Claim you're African. Black and I'm proud. I'm telling you. When you claim you're Africanist, you're going to get your mind back. Black and I'm proud. Claim you're African. Black and I'm proud. I'm telling you. Become a part of it. Embrace it. 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 When you claim you're Africanist, you're going to get your mind back. Black and I'm proud. Claim you're African. Black and I'm proud.
I want to give a shout out to everybody who's coming out today. And those who are on their way. Dr. Keem is going to make me an MC. So, while I'm at it, you know, the videographer, give him a shout out, Brother Tyran.
Oh yeah, Tyran.
Yeah, give him a round of applause. You know, because I was listening to my last joint. I kept calling him the cameraman, but he's so much more. Give DJ Tony Culture a round of applause. Coming in here, doing community work. You understand? Hire him for your next gig. Hire him for your next gig. You know what y'all might not know is the dead doctor that's coming up here today. Before, you know, I'm probably a little too early. But I'll probably forget about it if I don't say it now. She and I was in a cipher once. We had some academic fun. She thinks she won, but I know I won. All right, look, we about elevating people so the people won. You know, she called me out. But like, I think that, you know, we should be having these conversations, and have real conversation and dialogue about things. Sometimes we make it very difficult to have these conversations, these needed conversations, because everybody has their answers. I think cumulatively we should come together and have these discussions. So that's part of the reason why we created this community university series back in the day and why we resumed it. Mommy Donna, peace and blessings. All right, you want to do some elderly duties today? No, not at all. You don't want to help me out? You ain't prepared? I know you were always ready. So what I wanted, hold on, let her get a coat off first. You can help me out with that? Yeah. All right, so what we're going to do to get started is I'm going to ask Mommy Danu to get us started with libation. Give Mommy Danu a round of applause. Let's get some water though.
Peace and blessings, everyone.
Peace and blessings.
Happy to see everybody out this evening. And I just wanted to say that I'm happy that Minister Assar, Dr. Assar, wants to continue this community so that we can carry on keeping in touch with one another and spreading the vibes of love and unity and peace and power. And we always like to start off things here at TNET with giving praise and honor to our ancestors. We want them to know that we appreciate the steps that they took, the doors that they opened, and the struggles that they won. Some they didn't win, but still, they did what we all need to do, and that's try. To try our very best, to do everything that we can to uplift one another, to show each other love, and to carry on. And I imagine that it's like speaking to the choir, as sometimes they say in the church, because I imagine all of you know what is meant by pouring of libations. That's where we give praise and honor to our ancestors by calling their names. And that's so that we remember their good works, their good deeds, and all that they did to keep us alive, to keep us functioning. So I just want to start out with us all being involved in calling the names of some of the ancestors from antiquity, those who were the first to come forward, and those who did glorious deeds, lived long. Some of them didn't live long, but they all tried their best for us. Those are the people like Imhotep, Hatshepsut, Queen T, Queen Candace, and we can think of Mansa Musa. Keep calling the names, please. Marcus Garvey, Ashe, Ashe. Kwame Nkrumah, Thomas Sankara.
Bob Marley.
Call the names, call the names. All of those whose presence and whose energy you love having here with us. Just the thought of what they went through to help us to survive as a people. Coming across the Middle Passage, suffering through the Maafa, but we're still here. So that shows, that means that they did their best, that they did a good job. Then let us call the names of those in our own families. Those who did what they had to do to keep us alive, to keep us surviving.
Martha Johnson.
Aaron Barnett, Sarah Barnett, William Dunscombe, Myrtle Dunscombe, Yahya Aziz, call the names.
President Winkler.
You love the stories you've heard about your ancestors.
Eva Winkler.
Funny things, the horrifying things. Call their names.
Waverly Johnson. Pauline Johnson.
Ashe. And then to those unborn and those who didn't make it across the Middle Passage, all the children, let us think of them, give them a minute, a moment of honor and glory as well.
Ashe.
Ashe,
Ashe.
Ashe, Ashe-o,
Ashe-o.
libations.
Thank you. All right, give our ancestors a round of applause. Give Mommy and Johnny a round of applause. Jumping in there. You know, a veteran, before they get their coat off, you can give them an assignment. The speaker that's coming before us today, Dr. Kimya Nuru Dennis. You know, I can't remember, but I was looking at something. I think I was looking at I listened to a podcast that she gave. She was on a few podcasts. I don't know well how you came across my page. I have no idea. Or maybe, I don't know what, but I was very impressed with her approach on these podcasts, especially because they were podcasts from some non-black people. I can't remember what their ethnicity was. But she was very acutely, she was strong, precise, concise with her words and how she put things. She was very complex phenomenon in very simple ways to understand and grab and say, this is the problem, but this is the solution. You know, she just did a phenomenal job, and I was very impressed. Now, I don't always agree with her, but
That's the problem.
Look, like I don't look. But all the people I prayed before you, I don't look. I can tell you about 20 things I don't agree with, maybe more. But nonetheless, I think that we need to have these conversations, right? Now the difference between Dr. Kimya, you will know she don't agree because her face it's gonna twist up a bit. But nonetheless, I really appreciate her. You know, very powerful sister. I think she does, I'm not gonna say think, she does a lot of work in supporting many people and organizations in this city.
Black people.
She said black people. She does a lot to support black people in this city and around the world.
Yes.
And I mean, I'm serious when I say that she really is involved in lots of things. It ain't a place that I haven't seen a scene I haven't seen in. I'm talking about I'm on conscious stuff, y'all. I'm good things, you know. But nonetheless, what I will say is this: she's a powerful sister, and I want to read her bio. Doctor, where did I get it from?
Go ahead.
I asked you for it early on, and guess what? You get to get some things revealed that she doesn't even. I listened to a show and she didn't get this information. The person asked her about these things. She's like, "Oh, that's not important." so I got it for y'all. You know, all her credentials, not all of them, but you know, where she went to school, got all the dirt. So Dr. Kimya Nuru Dennis, as a community contributor, sociologist, criminologist, researcher, and professor, Dr. Kimya Nuru Dennis specializes in black mental health and physical health, black suicide, black substance use, K-12 and college curriculum, black workforce development, and black wealth building. That's a lot of black in there, y'all. Give her a round of applause for being so black. I mean, she want to make sure you know it's black, right? All right. She told me one time, I wrote a post, I said it was general. She said, well, you got to start talking. Yeah. She told me, look, I thought she was talking to us. You got to, every time I talk, it's about black people. I said, well, that was a general post. But nonetheless, Dr. Dennis received her PhD in sociology with concentrations in criminology and inequality from North Carolina State University. Her dissertation entitled Black Political and Socioeconomic Status Attainment and the Direction of Lethal Violence, comparing the suicide of young black and white males in U.S. counties. White made it in here, y'all. And MS in Criminal Justice from Virginia Commonwealth University and a BA in Political Science from the University of Richmond. I mean, but I got that. That's a heck of a title for a dissertation. Let me say that again. Hold up. I mean, she got like 2 subtitles in this thing. Black political and socioeconomic status attainment.
Yes.
And the direction of lethal violence, yes, comparing the suicide of young black and white males in U.S. counties.
It's the first study of the stream of violence regarding black people. So we did studies for men.
You ain't your turn yet. You about to come up? You want to drop it? All right, look, she gonna take my thunder. I mean, she gonna be up here for another 40 hours. So again, an MS in Criminal Justice from Virginia Commonwealth University and a BA in Political Science from the University of Richmond. To learn more about Dr. Dennis' local, national, and global contributions, go to her website, 365diversity.com. With no further ado, I bring you Dr. Dennis. Give her a round of applause. Bring on strong. Bring on strong. Bring on strong, family.
Y'all so funny. Okay. I was just mentioning my dissertation because the entire dissertation is online. You can find it on my website. So I want black folks to understand why the data is collected regarding suicide. I have all the data for black folks in general, and there's a reason why we compare men, white men and black men, because that's the highest suicide data available. So now, my colleague from Tanzania and I who's a statistician, we are furthering our research, and we notice still that it's only possible really to find a comparison with whites, because when you go even globally, it's almost impossible to find black suicide data. The only black suicide data you can really find is mostly in the USA. And that's an ongoing problem. Okay. So this is where, as a social scientist, specifically sociologist and criminologist, I explain data collection to our people. And we'll talk about that today. And as the baby has a moment, we're going to start this as an exercise.
My name is DJ Tony Culture. I'm from the island of Jamaica, you know? Yeah. Yeah, on Sunday, I run a show on the internet, you know what I mean? I try to incorporate as many as genres in the black diaspora as possible. I was born in Jamaica, but I personally don't believe in separation business. Oh, you are American, so you listen to American music. You're Jamaican, so you listen to Jamaican music. You come from Trinidad, you only listen to Trinidadian music. Because music can be used in a better way than it is being used right now. You understand me? Music can bridge gaps. It can bridge generation, it can bridge economic. You know what I mean? Music can knock down all of those barriers. So that's what I do on Sunday. You know what I mean? It's www.themusicalprimeminister.com. You know what I mean? That's what I do on there. So thanks for the time. I'm on Facebook. I'm on IG. I'm on TikTok. Yeah, I mean DJ Tony Culture or retro original retroactive sound. One of them names, you find me. Bless.
Yes. And let me tell you something. So being so humble, I don't, as black folks, I don't believe in being humble. And since I'm an African woman, when I say black, I'm talking about African. When I say African, I'm talking about black, by the way. They tell us that we have to be humble. And I always say, why? And 100% of the time, that's because they want us to be apologetically present, apologetically intelligent, apologetically confident. And so one thing that I will talk about, I've been a professor now for 20 years, and I talk about this with students and in community work. And when I do resource tables, I do community resource tables for health, education, economics. So a lot of times black folks come to my table, including when I had a table at the State of the Black World Conference. I had a 4-day table. And a brother came to my table at the State of the Black World Conference. He said, there's a lot going on at this table. You got health, education, economics. I said, as Africans, we need to know how it all connects. It's not a lot going on. Unless you know that life is complex, yes. But you have to understand how health, education, economics come together, okay? But as a people, we can't be humble. We have to celebrate our intelligence. We have to celebrate our knowledge, our science, our mathematics, our medicine, all of the things that we have as a people, okay? So on Sunday, when you listen to Tony Culture, you'll hear the range of art that he displays. And he'll have you listening to some of my favorite tracks. He'll have you from like the Temptations, knowing good and well, he knows Just My Imagination is my favorite Temptations song. He'll have you through that whole range. And that's what we as a people though need to understand, that art also is a form of propaganda to send a message for our people. Marcus Garvey used art as propaganda. W.B. Du Bois did, Harold Cruz did. So I'm also going to talk about Harold Cruz today. So, let's start off with an exercise though. And you can keep this to yourself or you can share some with each other. But this is where I always talk about, as black folks, we are very secretive. And that's not a good thing. Never brag about being secretive. It's always to our detriment. That's also why black folks tend to be very horrible at networking. I don't know so-and-so, but that's why you ain't got a job. Okay? Secretive also is harmful when it talks about health. Because how are you going to share information about health problems if you don't want to share information about your health background, your family background, right? So This is where writing down a few sentences is something that you can keep to yourself, but at least take it home like your diary. All right? So here's just 7 parts, and it just can be like a sentence. And let's spend about 20 minutes on this. First one, explain your financial planning. In one sentence, explain what is your financial planning. And if your sentence for that is I ain't got one, put that in asterisk. We're going to talk about that. The second sentence, how does your financial planning impact family? Because this amazing MC right here just touched on that in the father track, right? The second one, how does your financial planning impact family? The third one, how does your financial planning impact Black community and Black collectives? That goes back to the not being secret thing. We have to understand as individuals, what we do impacts the aggregate. You're not here by yourself, right? So it impacts your family, it impacts your community, it impacts your collective, it impacts our overarching culture. And that's how it impacts us locally, nationally, and then global collectives as well. Number 4, how does your financial planning impact Black culture? Number 5, what teachings, lessons, and resources does this provide for future Black generations? Black folks, we better lay a foundation for future generations. I always say, Black folks, you can't talk about giving homage to ancestors if you don't think you're laying some foundation for future people. Mm-hmm. You better not celebrate centuries of Black trailblazers if you don't lay the foundation for something. And I'm very serious when I say that to our people. Sometimes I can sound stern. I can sound aggressive, arrogant. Well, we have to be. Every trailblazer you celebrate has been stern and aggressive with our people. Why? Because our people have been taught oftentimes to not take things too seriously until tragedy strikes. Okay? So what foundation are you laying for future Black generations? We can't expect non-Blacks to ever lay that foundation. So what are you contributing to that? Number 6, what financial advice did you learn from other Blacks? Whether it's don't trust your uncle, whether it's don't trust that temple down West Street, whether it's whatever, what did you learn? Number 7, do you have a financial advisor and a financial planner? We're talking about a real one, because we're going to talk about that a little bit later. I also help our people. I'm born and raised in Richmond, VA. I lived in North Carolina for 17 years, and I've been in Baltimore now since 2019. And my financial planner is a Black man for 10 years, since I was still a full-time professor in North Carolina. And I recommend him to Black folks across the nation, but we talk all the time about what it means for our people to have legal financial planners, not someone who says they know how to handle money. Don't trust nobody. It has to be a legal financial planner, legally a financial planner. The same way it has to be a legal tax preparer. Just because you're an accountant does not mean you're a tax preparer. Just because you told someone you do taxes does not mean you're a tax preparer. There's so many things that we as Black folks have to understand. We have individual and internal accountability, because we can always blame outsiders for problems, but 100%, there's so many warning signs that we as a people ignore. I'm going to shut up now, and I'm going to give you about 15 minutes now, since I took 5 of it away, and we're called 1 through 7, and then we'll talk about it. Okay? Any questions about 1 through 7? And please be honest with yourself. You don't have to share it with me, but just write it down, please. All right, so I want you to think about this at the individual level, at the aggregate level. So think about it in terms of yourself, and then think about it in terms of your family, think about it in terms of your community and collectives. So the individual and the larger level. Think about this local and national. So this is where we want Black folks in the USA. We're here on Western Hemisphere due to transatlantic slavery. So we want Black folks specifically in USA to understand local and national emphasis on economic development. And there's a reason why that is the emphasis today and has been the emphasis for quite a while. Human capital, what you know. Skill set. So in sociology, I teach courses, social stratification, and other courses, and we talk about skill set, developing skills. You can develop it in K through 12, you can develop it in job training, you can develop it in community courses, you can develop it anywhere in family work. So what you know, social capital, who you know, how they know you. So that's the social component, the networking component. So as a professor, I always did in-class exercises where I would have my students, and a lot of my students, women students, I used to teach at a women's college, and a lot of times we would talk about what does it mean when people of particular demographics and identities and cultures only knew people close to them. And what does it mean when you only know people closest to you? Well, a lot of people assume that if you know people closest to you, that, well, duh, I'm gonna be successful. But if you read sociologist Dr. Deidre Royce's Race in the Invisible Hands book, that was published many years ago, she addresses that notion of that social capital component integrated with race, socioeconomic status, and other factors, specifically for Black men as compared to white men in the labor market. And so when I would do these class exercises with students, a lot of students were afraid to talk to people who they did not know. And that was because a lot of people come from cultures where you only speak with people who they already know. And then we say, how do you really network that way? What does it mean to go out of your comfort zone? And I'm someone who I always had to go out of my comfort zone, right? Living in different cities, living in different states, I found Black folk everywhere. So what does it mean when I just roll up? Hey, Black folks, right? A lot of Black folks, that's cultural, right? Because Black folks don't want to be cool with you unless they know your grandma, unless they know what high school you went to, unless they know what religious group you went to, whatever, right? But you have to learn how to figure it out, because that's the social capital component. Okay? And also, I put here the strength of weak ties. So Mark Granovetter, sociologist Dr. Mark Granovetter, he's not Black, but it is an important reading that we do use in sociology. Dr. Mark Granovetter did write about the strength of weak ties. So if I could draw a little diagram up here, it would talk about you have these close ties of people. Then far out there, you've got those weak ties, people you've never seen. You might have seen them walking down North Avenue. You don't know who they are. That's why they're weak ties. But you happen to one day talk to them. Maybe you saw them at an event. Maybe you saw them at the grocery store. And guess what? They're someone who can hire for a truck company. You had no idea. And that's a resource and an opportunity that your friends and family did not have to offer you. A lot of times Black folks don't extend to those weak ties because they feel like they're betraying their friends and families. But we have to expand our perspective on that. Because we have to understand loyalty to our people means being loyal to challenge our people to expand what that means. Okay? And that's also the cultural capital. Why and how people identify with you and respond to you. Again, everywhere I see Black folk, we Black folk. But again, we are sticklers for our cultural markers. So when I first moved to Baltimore, they knew I wasn't from Baltimore. And this is what they always mess with Black Baltimoreans. Y'all really think y'all not from the South.
We up south.
Y'all very Southern. I'm saying, I love y'all very much. But culturally, there's some real Southern traits here. Why? Why is that the case?
We're Black.
Not because we're Black, not just that. Historically, why are you located in this region? Due to migration, okay.
My people from North Carolina.
Okay, you're talking about transatlantic slavery. Okay. You know what I mean? Okay. All right, so yeah, so we'll just talk about that. So migration, right? So a lot of folks, say again?
You agree, son?
Okay, so immigration, transatlantic, all that, okay? So those are the cultural markers there. So that's an interesting thing when you look at cultural capital. It shapes how people are teaching. So teachers oftentimes connect with students who match their culture. It could be the way you do your hair, the way you dress, the way you speak. It could be the style of music that you do, the style of dress. We're going to talk about Baltimore music in a little bit as well, talk about Baltimore style of dress, because that's an interesting and important cultural marker, because we do have two MCs in the house here who send messages through their music. And that's important because people will listen to you even more because you're right then and there, okay? So we'll talk about that more. We actually have 3 MCs. You got another, how many MCs must get this? Raise your hand, brother, and introduce yourself to the crowd, because they don't know you yet.
I'm gonna just talk loud.
You can talk loud, yeah. He's the 3rd MC, by the way.
My name is Stu Roxon, and basically, I'm originally from Manhattan, New York, but I've been in Baltimore. I'll be 50 years old this year, so I've been in Baltimore since maybe 1980. And I used to live in this area. I used to go to school at Northern High School back in the 90s. I went to school with Jay Claxton and Trey Johnson on 92Q. We all in the same class together. So rapping since the 80s. I've been featured on songs with Will I Am from the Black Eyed Peas. I've met Suge Knight. I've traveled a little bit and dipped and dabbed into management. So like at one point in time, locally, I was managing talent locally. So, you know, I always give a lot of support to the city. I think that a lot of times pop culture overlooks Baltimore City. And I feel like it's about time that we kind of like just form a sort of like a revolt in independence to just get the market of music and talent out there.
Yep, and you know, that applause. And you know, I respect him because he recognizes who the GOAT is, Rakim. You know what I'm saying? Always recognize that. All right, so just here's some 2 points here, and these are some things just to reflect on at all times as Black people, and particularly those of us in the USA. How do centuries of Blacks in USA utilize our cultural attributes? So culture means arts, literature, sciences, mathematics, health and medicine. All of these are cultural attributes. So whenever people say, why do Black people keep singing, dancing? Why do y'all keep rapping? Why do y'all keep doing this? That's part of our culture, okay? Now what we do with our culture is the main point though. So there's a lot of literature. I share, Tony and them know, I share a lot of shared Google Drive files with entire books and writings from W.B. Du Bois, where he shares how to use art to send a message to progress our people. Marcus Garvey, where he used the Shay dance in Jamaica to send a message to progress Jamaicans and spread that message, particularly in USA, since that was the headquarters of UNIA. And Harold Cruz used artist propaganda because that's a development of culture. So you can't tell people that we're just fools to do what we do. They don't own what we do. Okay? Instead, you have to take that ownership and say, here's what we're going to utilize it for. Okay? Here's what you're going to utilize what you're doing. You can use it for expression of happiness, sadness, whatever, but it has to be a purpose, and then the purpose can also be used to progress our people. All right? And then also integrating approaches. So this is one thing, I'm a big proponent of integrating different Black approaches. And I'm specifically saying different Black approaches because I firmly believe in Black people increasing our own concepts, our own theories, our own research, our own writings, our own action, our own stuff we've created. You hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So we literally have created our own concepts, our own research, our own theories, our own action, all of our own. Okay? We can choose to integrate with non-Blacks, but it first has to be that you have the foundation of what we've created. And that includes when you're talking about economic approaches. It's not conspiracy theories. It's not con artists. I always have to clarify that. You can't have black folks saying they don't want to open a bank account because they run from the government. All right? Because that's another warning sign for a larger issue. It could be issues regarding conditions of our people overall. Could be some correlates of mental illness for some people. So we do want our people to understand what it means to develop as a people and to have resources. All right, so I just want to give some historical examples. So as black folks, when we celebrate history, we celebrate our people, here's some examples. Since I'm born and raised in Richmond, VA, we do have the wonderful school, the Maggie L. Walker School in Richmond. And so Maggie Lena Walker, businesswoman, teacher, black woman, first and foremost, she put concepts and theories, plans into action. That's a huge deal. Because you can have all the concepts, theories, and ideas in the world, and then when black folks say, what you gonna do? You're nowhere. Or you say you put it in place, but then when black folks say prove it, like a financial audit, that's what I always demand from like politicians, school decision makers and stuff, when they promise our people stuff. That includes black politicians and black school decision makers. You can't just say that you're doing something. Now black folks have to learn how to do quantitative research and qualitative research. And not just one time, but actually consistent work, okay? So Magdalena Walker did a bunch of work here. She did it before Dr. W.B. Du Bois did it, starting in 1899. And then in 1903, the St. Luke Penny Savings Bank became the nation's first black woman bank president. Okay? So all of that work here. Any thoughts on Magdalena Walker? So again, she was born in Richmond, VA, where I'm born and raised, 1864. She passed away in Richmond, VA in 1934. So her work, part of her work became national focus because they got chapters in different states, but she remained in Richmond for a reason. And now we have a wonderful statue in Richmond on West Broad Street, and it has all these markers around the statue so that you can learn about Magdalena Walker. Any thoughts on Magdalena Walker? So again, this is an example of putting concepts into actions, not just throwing out ideas, but saying, here's what we're gonna do. And it doesn't mean that all black folks gonna agree. It doesn't mean that all black folks gonna like you. It doesn't mean that all black folks are gonna wanna join it. It means that there's a collective who are going to do this, okay? And that's very important because it is exhausting and it can be difficult. Now, I always have to give a shout out to sociologist Dr. W.B. Du Bois because I am a Du Boisian sociologist and criminologist. While I'm Du Boisian, I also criticize W.B. Du Bois a lot. That's the thing about learning stuff, right? You appreciate their work, but you also tear it apart. That's how real knowledge works. So when I teach theory courses, I tell students, you can appreciate this theory, but you also better learn how to integrate it with other approaches and critique it. That's how work goes, right? So the same is the case for Dr. Du Bois's corroborative economic plan, and I highlight plan, outlined in Chapter 7 of Dusk of Dawn that was published in 1940. Plan because it was a wonderful plan, but it did not go into action for various reasons, including when he left the NAACP, how he was treated, when he was investigated, and all these things that happened to him. It was the first attempt to construct a national economic program designed to include only Negroes. Du Bois suggested his proposal as a national model for Negro economic self-sufficiency. And it was the case for racial self-segregation to meet the needs of blacks during that time. Now, of course, his model was opposed by the NAACP because NAACP, then and now, was focused on racial integration. Du Bois eventually became focused on racial integration, but at that time, he actually had a focus on black development and specifically economic development. Okay?
Excuse me.
Yes.
At that time was the, I'm not sure the timeline as far as the the Black Wall Street,
Uh,
was, was that in his plan to help the Black Wall Street or a different time frame?
yeah, that was a different time frame, right? Because, and I'm actually going to read your quote, so thank you for saying that.
Mhm.
So this is chapter 7 of The Dusk of Dawn, and that's another, and I've shared the entire book online as well. So it starts at page 100 where he starts explaining this. And so that was not at the time of the Black Wall Street, because there's a reason why what he presented was actually the first plan described. Because if you all remember, Booker T. Washington and Du Bois went back and forth. And Du Bois actually explained that as well in The Dusk of Dawn. So Booker T. Washington had some ideas, but it still was very different compared to what Du Bois was recommending regarding economic development. Okay. I also want to give a shout out to our wonderful UNIA members who are here, the Baltimore chapter UNIA. Eventually, I'm going to let you all speak because I do want to address that, because that, again, that's an example of economic development. But first, I want us to focus on Black folks, specifically in USA, and then we'll talk about that a little bit as well. All right. So one of the quotes that Du Bois had in Dusk of Dawn was that Du Bois said, "In the first place, we have already got a partially segregated Negro economy in the United States. There can be no question about this. We not only build and finance Negro churches, but we furnish a considerable part of the funds for our segregated schools. We furnish most of our own professional services in medicine, pharmacy, dentistry, and law. We furnish some part of our food and clothes, our home building and repairing, and many retail services. We furnish books and newspapers. We furnish endless personal services like those of barbers, beauty shopkeepers, hotels, restaurants. It may be said that this inner economy of the Negro serves but a small proportion of its total needs, but it is growing and expanding in various ways. And what I propose is to plan and guide it as to take advantage of certain obvious facts." Okay? Any thoughts on what Du Bois said in 1940 and how it pertains to still what's going on in 2024? All right, because Du Bois also talked about the New Deal. So, of course, as you know, the New Deal is an explanation of when you're building from capitalism. So by the way, the USA form of capitalism has been integrated with the European form of socialism for a century. Why did that happen? I always want Black folks to know history, because I don't want Black folks to ever go based on the stuff that other people want you to think are facts. So why has the USA form of capitalism been integrated with the form of European socialism for more than a century?
Mutual interest?
What happened in the Great Depression? Why did soup kitchens start?
Lack of food.
Lack of food, and who were they servicing mostly a century ago?
Right.
White people. Yes, including immigrant European populations. Okay? So I help people apply for EBT cards, but whenever people falsely depict this as something that did not exist until Black folks demanded it, that's a century of false, number one. Okay, the same way claiming that about affirmative action is false, because we are not the main benefactors of affirmative action, and that's not been the case since the 70s and 80s. All right. So this is where Black people have to read more. And when I say read, I'm not talking about news stories, social media, and internet websites. I'm talking about books. And I'm not talking about books that you care about being banned. There's nobody stopping you from reading. We were the first people to put bookshelves on street corners because we were not allowed in schools, bookstores, and libraries. So when you see these bookshelves on street corners now, you think somebody else started that. We started it first. Nobody tells you to read and what to read and what to learn. That's why I provide a range of readings. I'm among the Black folks around the world who provide a range of readings for free. I don't even charge students for textbooks. I tell people you can disagree with everything you're reading, but it has to be because you actually read it. It can't be because your grandma told you. It can't be because you're part of an organization that told you what to believe. It can't be because you're tired of page 1. It's because you read the entire book or the entire journal article. And you've taken time to intellectually digest it. Because that's what Black knowledge means. It's inconvenient, it's exhausting. And that's also why I've always used music to be an example of knowledge. Because if you're told to read 100 books, for example, to get an academic degree, for like a comprehensive exam or a dissertation, you're gonna put it in a song, right? You're gonna do some lyricism. You're like, yo, the research methods. You're gonna do something to make it interesting for yourself. So I want Black folks to know how to do that throughout your life. You can't be a Black parent mad at schools not allowing books, but you yourself don't read. Why should schools care about your outrage? You're not gonna read the book regardless. You won't go read it if it was allowed, right? So Du Bois proposed this as a plan, but it was a plan. Okay? Yes.
You believe you answered the question that you posed. Why was what was it? Societal capitalism,
Communism, socialism, and that.
The question you
I
had.
said Great Depression.
The Great Depression was the reason why. That was the answer?
Yeah, it's more than a century.
Okay.
Y'all remember that?
Yes.
I did answer that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You would think there's some lyrics. I don't believe Black hero. Yeah, that's more than a century. So you can see old photos of that. The same when you see old black and white photos of poor working class whites and even some middle class whites from back then who became part of social welfare. People empathize with that. The same when we talk about the empathy regarding migration. That tends not to be connected with empathy regarding transatlantic slavery, okay? But that all connects with social welfare that's existed for a century and all connects with the integration of capitalism and socialism. So perhaps a lot of people don't understand that the European component of socialism is why there's social welfare. So it might be why you thought I didn't answer it. We would not have social welfare if it was not a component of socialism. And I say component because we have various thousands of years of socialism. We have African socialism, we have European socialism, indigenous socialism, so this is the European form. It's impossible to have social welfare without a form of socialism. Why? Because social welfare is paid through your taxes, right? What does socialism mean? Socialism means things are paid through your taxes, right? Right? I want y'all to understand. Because people tell you all times as Black folks to criticize capitalism, right? To push for socialism, even communism, if you look at that angle, right? But when you ask Black folks to explain this, because that's what I do as a professor, many people don't know how to explain it. It's coming through your taxes, which also requires government control. So when I do these writings and presentations where I'm talking about Dr. Thomas Sowell, Harold Cruz, Du Bois, you have to understand that Black folks want forms of liberation, but we don't want so much government intervention. So that's why most Black folks want a form of socialism, but they don't want it to be 100% because that means now government's gonna literally control everything. Because it's all through your taxes, okay? Now, many Black folks will hear this and they'll be mad. But that's good, because at least maybe they're thinking, okay?
So with that, right? So our next speakers will probably be pretty interesting. But so then does the government become the people become the government though?
No.
I'm just throwing it out there.
Why do y'all think that? How do y'all think that happens?
I'm going to suggest that most people who talk about socialism, they would say that we the people become the government.
That's the difference between a theory and real life.
Okay. So explain it.
That's the difference between theory and real life.
So-
If y'all look at the facts of every government around the world, look at every government around the world. What you think, they run by aliens? They run by people, right? I mean, this is every government around the world. I want black folks to actually know facts, right? So you can romanticize something. You can make it seem cool, because, yeah, you can make it seem awesome.
So to access all the stuff that my taxes pay for, what makes it so difficult for working people to access the stuff they give away to people for free?
It's not for free, it's paying such taxes.
So I'm saying the people who access it is people who really basically never worked, or the people who work pay for their to access that.
A lot of people are still paying taxes. Even unemployed people, a lot of times will pay sales taxes. So, for example, in Baltimore, there's high unemployment, right? But people are still doing sales taxes when they buy tobacco and liquor, which you can find on every street corner, particularly in black parts. Right?
Yes.
So they're still paying for something.
Oh.
Immigrant populations, including illegal immigrants, actually pay high taxes. So that's something that you want to understand that's contrary to what certain news networks tell you. That's why I always tell black folks to read the data beyond news stories, beyond outrage, and beyond people marching down streets. There's actually factual information that doesn't tell you to pick any political side. You don't have to pick any politician, any political party, because black folks have to know facts, period. There's literally people paying taxes across the board. So the same way, when I talk about Dr. Juju Royster's book, Race in the Invisible Hand, that tension between black men and white men back then and now in that labor market was because white men said that you're not really deserving what you're receiving, right? You're getting this assistance from the government, you're getting this, and this, and y'all don't pay taxes. We always ask people, how do you know they don't pay taxes? Are you IRS now? So then you find out you're the feds. Right? So the same way people need to stop acting like experts and all these people, that's the same way I respond to Dr. Assar when people say, well, you know, people control it, not the governments. Governments are people. So it's wonderful to start off theoretically and say, yeah, we the people, we're going to take charge. I want y'all to remember what happened with Occupy Wall Street and all that stuff. When people were stinking and marching down streets.
So with that, right? Because I think it leaves a question. What do you suggest as far as, do you suggest any reform, any reconstruction?
Like to hear it go. Like to hear it go. Harold Cruz. Because I don't believe in black folks complaining without solutions. Social scientist, Dr. Harold, not the doctor, but he was hired as professor. But Harold Cruz, Petersburg, Virginia, which is 20 minutes from Richmond. His plan was in the Crisis of the Negro Intellectual, 1967. He expanded Du Bois's cooperative plan, and he used Harlem as a model. So when he was young, he worked at the Harlem YMCA, and he actually worked in theater. And he was like, yo, we in this theater in the Harlem YMCA, we a bunch of black people performing in white plays and stuff. Like, why are we doing Shakespeare? He's like, why? So he actually said, this is an example of how we have to develop our own art. That's how he started using art as the foundation for culture, and how black people literally have to take back our culture and use it to develop our people. It could be, that was after the Harlem Renaissance stuff, remember? But, yeah. So here is some proposals. So this is a segment. I just had to pick some parts, right? His first proposal, socio-cultural revolutionary agenda, Harlem-wide boycott organized to control and own cultural institutions like theater, nightclub sites. Second, cultural institutions should be nationalized, operated, and administrated for the education and cultural benefit of the Harlem community, controlled by Harlem community-wide citizens. And again, he used Harlem as the standard, but he wanted it to apply to Black folks across the nation eventually. That was the plan, okay? And here's the second proposal, social organizational revolutionary agenda. Planning groups should be organized to overhaul the social, cultural, political, and economic life. Blacks with business skills coming together for business cooperatives. He looked at the excess stores. If you have an area in Harlem specifically and eventually across the nation, if there's too many stores that do all this, we're going to turn these into nurseries and stuff. Now for me, I believe in turning every liquor store and every convenience store and CBD oil stores and all that into other stuff. That would be a contemporary example of what Harold Cruz recommended. Okay? Y'all cussing me out, but don't do that. Okay? And he said, seek legal advice. Okay? Here he was looking at, he called it drug addicts. That's the terminology he used. I would use substance use. Okay? That's the terminology I would use. But he was talking about getting people legal advice to combat crime and drug peddling. That's, again, the terminology he used. I would not use that terminology now. So that's an example of how you can see a plan and you're like, okay, how do we do a contemporary version? It doesn't have to be the same way. Okay? This is the part that I always say when I'm around people who love to do photo ops with politicians, including Black politicians. I always tell my friends and family, if you ever decide to be a politician of any type, that's when we're going to change a lot in how we interact. I ain't doing any photos with you. I ain't supporting you. You're going to give me any kind of thing, anything, and claim I support you. Because that's like a promise that I'm going to be on your side. And I did not promise that at all. I'm in line with what Harold Cruz said here. Needing an all-Black community-wide political party to add bargaining force here. So we do have collectives in Baltimore and across the nation who've tried to do that for generations now. It doesn't work for a range of reasons, and we'll talk about that. And here's why I tell people, once you try to do something, don't assume that I'm not going to critique you. At the top, Cruz proposed, there's no Black leader and no Black organization that has asked Black Americans to develop the discipline and cooperative organizations to devote time and energy towards developing the Black inner world. The Black inner world, because Harold Cruz was a Black nationalist. The inner focus. Do y'all agree with that?
Inside out.
Huh? Yeah. Because a lot of people like to say there's like some radical Black organizations. Yo, we radical. Yo, we radical. That sounds... We doing some things. First of all, again, the Black politicians, nah. The Black leaders, that's always difficult because if you read Sam Greenlee's book, The Spook Was Set by the Door, which I also have that free book on my shared Google Drive folder, you understand that as Blacks, we do have to have that multi-identity. We do have to sit by the door and learn some things. We do have to have an insider. The difference, though, is you have to distinguish sitting by the door with being a tokenism. A lot of Black folks have not been taught to distinguish. What does it mean to be in this space and you're bringing it back to your people versus being in this space, be like, hey, I'm gonna prove myself I deserve to excel because I'm here with you. That's not working the system. Now you're part of the system, right? Okay? So that's where he started talking about the Black politicians and the civil rights leaders who can have a very important role. However, they do not create new ideas. That's why the role is artists, intellectuals of each generation. I'm going to say it again, artists, intellectuals in each generation. What you gonna do? Because I'm saying, ooh, it sounds like Lauryn Hill, doesn't it? Pick the three-piece suit. Okay. Harold Cruz also said, activism without planning, thought, or deep reflection is not only anti-theoretical, but it may result in self-defeating actions and consequences. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. This is one thing I tell our people. Yes, we have every reason to vent. We have every reason to complain, every reason to be outraged, but that can't be the definition of blackness. Your blackness and our black folks and Africanness cannot be defined as oppressive and oppressed. You can't be told to always talk about other stuff, because they welcome that. They want us to self-focus on other stuff so we don't have time, focus, and resources to develop our own. That's an intentional design regarding race for 5 centuries. Thousands of years before race existed regarding other things, right? And this, again, the all-black political party reference. And he wrote about that a lot in the Black Road magazine there. So, Dr. Asar, repeat your question again, because you're going to get some other thoughts on the question.
Which question was that?
You said, what you gonna do?
Oh, okay. So what? So I'm
What's
here.
the other proposal if you don't
So I'm
rely
here.
on
So I'm being a nice. I just want to give a little something to it. So
Yes.
this is theory. So now tell me what does that look like in application today?
Yeah, so that's why I started off with Maggie L. Walker, because that was an example of putting theory and plan into action, right? She implemented it, and as a black woman, that was very profound back then, and it still is now, because it's like, okay, well, y'all don't agree, I'm gonna do it anyway.
So does the system stay the same? That's what I want. That's
Well, what do y'all mean by system? As a sociologist, as a professor, I always tell people, sociologists are partly to blame for people using words like systemic, systematic, structural, right? How you doing? Because it's like, what does this really mean, right? So what does system mean?
What does it mean?
What does system mean? Yes, what does it mean in terms of real life? What does system mean? What does it mean? Yeah.
I guess you would say it's sequence of succession of events, steps, order.
Yeah, so, okay, as a sociologist, I must say, yeah, but you want to say something?
When I hear system, I think of the institutions that really perpetuate white supremacy. So,
White supremacy?
Yeah.
Ooh, I'm among the Pan-Africans and Black nationalists who want our people to stop using white supremacy so much, because, it's like, do we really? Well, I'm both Pan-African and Black nationalists, and it's like, are they supreme, really?
No.
That's why I said the system that promoted, not saying that it actually exists, white people are not superior to anything, but there are institutions like the criminal legal system, capitalism and the structure of the banking system. There are
Capitalism,
systems.
what's capitalism mean?
Capitalism, the way that, we're putting profits over people and we're prioritizing that. We're playing a game as black people right now that we're disadvantaged because we came in without any inheritance. We're hundreds and hundreds of years behind when we're talking about assets.
Let's go back to understand the meaning of capitalism. So you understand the work of Booker T. Washington. What was Booker T. Washington? And why did Marcus Garvey use Up From Slavery as the foundation of what Marcus Garvey did? Who was Booker T. Washington? What did he do? Why did he write Up From Slavery? What did it mean? Okay, we're gonna run out of time with the black folks. Black capitalist, okay, black capitalist. You can even read Dr. Huey P. Newton's writings about his support for black capitalism, but what it means to be a black capitalist, because as black folks, we have to understand that the original notion of capitalism is Adam Smith's writing regarding mode of production. Capitalism is not synonymous with exploitation of labor. Yes, forms of anti-capitalism have existed before Karl Marx was even born, but that does not make capitalism and exploitation synonymous. Hence, Booker T. Washington, black capitalist. Du Bois was black capitalist.
So that's to own your own business.
So what?
Y'all think that there's going to be black entrepreneurship and black private development if you become anti-capitalist? Y'all think that's possible? And if y'all think that's possible, I need y'all to read more and go out more and meet people. No, I'm not joking right now. I really need that, because like, if you all really think that dismantling capitalism is not going to happen, but like I already said, USA capitalism has been integrated with a form of socialism for centuries now. So it's not this pure capitalism that people keep pretending anyway, right? But if you think that there's going to be a black man with a nonprofit and a non-capitalist society, you need to meet some people around the world and see what they're really dictated on doing.
So what is exploitation synonymous with?
Exploitation.
So where does that come from?
Well, people got that terminology from European authors, right? Mostly I'm a sociologist, Karl Marx is a sociologist, so Karl Marx, Frederick Engels. You have to remember that Karl Marx didn't even write about transatlantic slavery, he was paid to do so. His focus, he and Frederick Engels' focus was Western Europe, right? And then he integrated Eastern Europe because of what was going on in Eastern Europe. But he was not focused on Asian nations, indigenous, he wasn't focused on Africans. So we can critique capitalism, but that's not the same thing as pretending the problem is capitalism. This is what I tell my students, you have to be able to explain everything. Like, that's why I taught Dr. Sarr, what is systemic? What does it mean when we say that? What does it mean when we say capitalism? I'm gonna tell you right now, if you think you're gonna dismantle capitalism and then just be freely walking around, developing a nonprofit, developing a business, being MCs, releasing albums, and not being government controlled even more, then I don't know what to tell you. Because it's wonderful theoretically to say, well, people will be empowered and they're going to do the right thing. But if you know the origins of humans, scientists have said we've existed for hundreds of thousands of years and potentially millions of years as humans. And since the origins of humans have always had rankings. If you read Dr. Charles Tilly's Inequality by Design, he talks about what it means when humans can never coexist. Whether it's the size of your feet, the height, anything that we have that distinguishes us from each other. It's always going to happen, no matter the economic system, no matter the government system. So whenever you, like we always say, don't believe the hype. It's easy to tell black folks the hype, but then you have to explain the details beyond the hype. In Baltimore, which we got up here, in Baltimore, y'all better tell these decision makers in every capacity, in every realm, including the black decision makers, that you don't believe the hype. And not just because you're angry, because you're intellectually informed and prepared. Right? So the same when you tell that to those powerful decision makers, you also better tell those to the people who claim to be radicals. Because the people who claim to be radicals, they claim to have solutions, but they don't have evidence of conclusions. So yes, if you're a black person who says capitalism is exploitative, you just have to have details for the problem. That doesn't mean that you have to be 100% anti-capitalist, or you don't have to be 100% pro-capitalist either, right? Instead, you're like, I don't have to use that jargon at all, actually. I'm like, what solutions are for real important for me? It's not based on popularity contests. Too many times, black folks want approval. They want to seem radical. They want to seem intellectual. They want to seem, subscribing to conspiracy theories. They're out to get us. They're out to get us. But we get ourselves that way. Because when you believe all of that, and you're alone subscribing to that literally, those people who taught you all of that are nowhere to be found.
Stop pointing at me, though, Doc. I'm
not
asking
talking-
questions to give you a little spice up in here.
Dish them down, dish I'm probably not. Now, those people are nowhere to be found. I mean, when it's time to pay medical bills, they were like, man, forget the government. We ain't gotta pay bills. But now you're in the hospital. Where are they? Man, forget those employers, you know what I mean? We don't need those jobs, but you need to pay bills, so you need to work. Man, forget the government. We don't need nothing, but now you want to apply for a government grant for your nonprofit. And where does that come from? Tax-funded grants in a government that is partially capitalist and partially socialist. Life insurance, all these other resources, right? Yes, sister.
Question. So, I guess my question is more so, what solution would you suggest in regards to having more of like a communalism aspect as opposed to a black capitalist? Because I know sometimes we say, okay, we want black businesses, we want to do these type of things, but psychologically we may be thinking, in a sense that continues to cultivate this society in a sense. But it's just like, how do you, like, what solutions do you suggest to make it more black communalism instead, as opposed to the capitalistic aspect that we may have adopted living here in this system?
It will still be capitalistic though. I mean, I just go back to everything I just said. Like, if you read Julius Nyerere work, where he talks about the communalism approach, because he wanted to propose something realistic beyond just claiming you're gonna get rid of this without real solutions. He wrote about communalism. And those are also my free shared Google Drive folders. As black folks, we can have black communalism. But again, if you think it's gonna be based on uniting our people and then be anti-capitalist, you're not going to have solutions. You're not going to have realistic approaches. Like, what are you telling people to do? Where are you telling people to work? Like, you think you're going to talk about entrepreneurship and encourage our people to join chambers of commerce, but then they're going to just be 100% anti-establishment, 100% anti-capitalist? You think you're going to tell people to support black business, but man, forget black capitalism, but I support black business. Y'all don't understand how that don't go together? That don't belong in the same sentence?
Right.
And most black folks don't subscribe to a lot of that stuff. Most black folks, and we're talking for centuries, and we're talking about in USA and actually around the world, because even migrants who come to USA actually come here for capitalism.
Yeah. Make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
So many.
What I'm getting as capitalism as when you're taking advantage of people. Now, helping black people buy black, think black, and putting it into the community so you can encourage and help each other on a human side instead of then taking advantage of other people. So capitalism to me is taking advantage.
Yeah, but you came in right after I explained that. You literally, this is the brother,
Yeah.
good brother over here. You came in right after I explained that. So capitalism is not synonymous with exploitation. The meaning of capitalism is mode of production. And Adam Smith wrote about that. That's actually, although Booker T. Washington did not read Adam Smith's mode of production, that's actually the foundation of Booker T. Washington's Up From Slavery. That's the foundation that Marcus Garvey read that made Marcus Garvey become a black capitalist. Most black folks are black capitalists because they don't consider capitalism synonymous with exploitation. They understand exploitation and they think there's something that you can reduce exploitation. Even Dr. Huey P. Newton wrote about how you can support black capitalism, but you have to be very careful to avoid exploitation. So this is going back to what Dr. Starr said. What are some realistic solutions? Number one, I'm adamant up and down about black folks facing facts beyond terminology, beyond common words, beyond something that's common in your book club common in your organization. The same way I tell black folks to challenge things that they learn in their religion that's not factual, but you just been told to follow it just because, you gotta just understand that there's certain things that you're told that when it lays down to it, you're like, I can see how this is factual in a sense, but it's not that same one size fits all that black folks in particular keep being told to believe. Blacks around the world, we're talking about around the world at this point, not just in USA, but around the world, we tend to be the only people that keep just believing everything thrown at us. And when we become more intellectual, people equate that with being brainwashed. Well, for me, I believe it's actually brainwashed when you're not intellectual enough to challenge some stuff. It's okay to challenge exploitation. That's what Booker T. Washington did. That's what W.B. Du Bois did. That's what Marcus Garvey did. That's what all black capitalists try to find a way to do.
It's not even phone. It's institutionalized. It's programming. Turn on the TV. Turn on.
I know, but we have, as black folks, we got to get past that because
Even
I just
go to
don't.
school. It's thought.
If you're stuck there though,
Yeah.
that's on you. You got. This is why here at the wonderful TNAT Holistic Wellness Center, and we do support groups here because black folks need to find a way to get that out of our minds. If we're gonna be stuck in what was taught in our families and taught in schools and stuff, we keep saying the government did this did this. Guess what? They want us to be stuck in that. They literally want us. That's why we have wonderful mental health professionals. And there are some black mental health professionals who are wonderful black radicals. I have some in my own life.
I want to. This is perfect, right?
Okay.
So I want to kind of give I guess a drop for our upcoming event, right?
Yes.
But also I want to ask you a question to kind of frame it in a way so that you can answer, then also promote for the next event.
Well, because I want actually black folks to get to this point because all this whole thing, we've been taught this, we've been taught this. We got to get to this part here. This is solution based.
So my question is, so Dr. Jared Ball, Morgan State professor at Morgan State University, dear brother. He has a book called The Myth of Black Buying Power, right? And he speaks to, I think he would probably argue that it's nearly impossible for us to do the things that you're suggesting.
Okay.
No,
Can you just talk about something else?
No,
I want to hear the brother. Can we hear the brother real quick?
I'm just trying to get it's for both reasons. So suggesting, right? So that you can, because you're going to point out all the things.
Yeah, I already know what he's gonna say though.
Yeah, but this is a community thing. This is for all of us, right?
Yeah, we know.
This is for all of us, right? So there's a myth that we can catch up, right? Via black capitalism. And that's
I
why.
didn't say via black capitalism.
Well, I'm talking about what he's.
There's many different options.
Well, I'm talking about what he's proposed, not necessarily what you said. So his lecture is coming up. Black capitalism is psychological warfare. Mm-hmm. So he even argues against the idea of entrepreneurship is a methodology to liberation or freedom or whatever we want to call it, right? And so all the things that in line with you, he's saying that we've been sold a lot of myths, and one of them is that black capitalism can help us and aid us in becoming free. Any thoughts about that?
So, any Baltimore examples of black culture for black political development and black economic development? Who can give me some examples? Who are some black music and performers in Baltimore who can address these issues that we have for our people? Again, any Baltimore examples of black culture for black political development, black economic development?
Black music.
Black vocations, this is one.
So who are some black music and performers? Mm-hmm. The wonderful MCs who performed earlier. The other MC who had to leave early. Again, we're looking at black culture for black political development and black economic development. Because remember, Harold Cruz wanted blacks to develop our culture and use our culture and other forms of art to develop our people politically and economically. Any other examples in Baltimore? Y'all always brag to me about Baltimore geographically huge. So y'all can't give me examples of what's going on in Baltimore?
Arena players, what's the name of the spot on Howard Street? The UB Lake Center,
Okay.
Swainson Hughes.
Thanks to you. You got B-More Green, West North Avenue. MC over here knows all about B-More Green hip hop nights. So the black visual arts places includes the Langston Hughes spots. So black educators here in Baltimore, we got black organizations, we got black leaders and black decision makers. So do they do anything to express the need for change in black finances and black economics? So there are some though, right? So there's some that do virtual and in-person programs on black wealth building, life insurance. Raise your hand if you've attended any local in Baltimore presentations on wealth building and economic development. Are there only a few of us?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So how can we use these also to express black political development? Okay. So this is my way of answering Dr. Sar's question. I can answer all types of things. I do this all day, every day. But I don't care about my answers. I need black folks to conceptualize this and operationalize it, meaning goes into action. It don't really matter just what I think. Because if we have people say black entrepreneurship don't matter, this don't matter, this don't matter, this don't matter, but they don't provide solutions, and they don't ask me for solutions, well, I'm gonna tell you solutions when you ain't tell us solutions after you critique. Right? You keep telling black folks, this don't work, this don't work, this don't work, entrepreneurship don't work, blah, 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 blah. But Dr. Kimya, what you think? I think you need to do more time on saying what does work and what you think should work and what you're doing in the community to do work instead of critiquing everything that you think does not work. That's why I want our people to outline all of this that's already happening locally and nationally, what you're contributing to, and what we're laying the foundation for future generations of blacks, like I asked earlier. See, black folks really wanted to talk when we're talking about capitalism, man. Forget capitalism. Everybody was all antied up. Get black folk, get them. But then was like some real action stuff to change stuff. So y'all fussing about exploitation and stuff. Black folks get real quiet. So the problem is really not the capitalism. The problem is that you've been told to define blackness as a problem without solutions. That's the problem. Yes, sister.
I just want to make sure I'm understanding your question correctly. Are you basically asking how do those roles aid in black political development?
Economic and political development, what are some examples? How are you contributing to that?
Okay. So if...
Go ahead.
Okay, so
and then we'll get to
my thought is when I think of about politics and stuff like that, I just think of more so like a way of life or like a system in the sense that keeps things, like going, or like a particular structure or something like that. That's how I view politics. So if I was to think about the role that you just mentioned in regards to the artists or the speakers or something like that, the musicians, I would think that their role would be to, speak the truth, and they do it in a maybe like a musical sense or like a creative sense of like speaking the truth, or just expressing the knowledge, or just sharing like main points to the audience of like just being creative and sharing like the truth to our people and stuff. So
Okay.
I would think that's a.
So this is where I want blacks to be specific though, right?
Okay.
So not just ideas what people should do, but what's going on. So Thursday evening, I attended a virtual, the African Diaspora Group in Anne Arundel County did a virtual, it was a phase 2 talking about life insurance. Last Saturday, the chapter of my sorority did something regarding wealth building. There's literally black collectives that are doing virtual and in-person work locally, nationally. Also, I do global collaborations where we do this work also. So I actually want blacks to have specific things that are being done by our people, because we can't keep complaining about the government, because we're literally paying for the government, number one. Number two, we have black folks who are spending money out of our own pockets, time out of our own busy schedules, doing this stuff. So are you participating, are you contributing, or are you just complaining? That's always the question that you always have to ask yourself, because they really want us to complain and pretend that there's nothing out there being done, nothing out there changing. And if you read my shirt, health, education, economics, black evolution. Black evolution, as Harold Cruz explains, it's beyond black revolution. Whenever y'all talk about black revolution, it's because it's a popular thing. Like, yo, we had a black revolution, and people tend to think about marching down streets and protest. They don't understand we've done that for centuries now, right? There's something that we're doing beyond that at many levels as black folks. The evolution, as Harold Cruz explains, is beyond the revolution. But the evolution still is a continuous thing for the remainder of human existence. You contribute as much as possible throughout your life. You don't think that everything's just going to change, but you also have to lay a foundation for future generations of our people. You literally have to do that. But you have to understand critique. So it's okay to say, okay, that don't work. So what do you recommend? But it can't always be asking people what they recommend. You have to ask yourself, what do I recommend? What am I contributing? How am I collaborating? You want to add something.
I was going to say I contribute. I do something. I do something about it.
We talked about earlier about being humble. She's so humble. She contributes a lot in the community.
I do what you say. I do what's on the board. I make sure I don't just talk about it. I execute. So I believe in everything that you're saying. Everything that you're talking about. You do it. You encourage me to do even more. And yes, I do take it out of my pocket, but sometimes you have to sacrifice. And that's what I believe in doing. We don't like to sacrifice.
And thank you. And this is something that Harold Cruz wanted our people to understand. It's the same thing that Du Bois wanted our people to understand. The same thing that Marcus Garvey wanted our people to understand. When we talk about black empowerment, it doesn't mean we're blaming our people for the problems in the first place. Like, a lot of our people have been taught that self-empowerment somehow means that we're ignoring the problem and pretend that we started the problem. We're not doing that. We're literally saying the problems will keep happening, and especially if we spend our life staring at it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna just stare at this daggone exit sign. I can't get around it, and I don't know how else to avoid it. I'm gonna just stare at it. That's the design.
Yeah.
If you learn, and I had 20 years of teaching the sociology of race.
Right.
If you learn about various cultures and collectives of people around the world, what it means to understand historical and current oppressions
Yes.
without that being synonymous with their identities, with them understanding what they're doing to develop. As black folks, we have to understand that for ourselves. What you waiting for, the government change? I'm serious right now. Is that what y'all waiting for?
Oh, we put in the work to see.
We're gonna get rid of capitalism. Oh, let's pretend that's gonna happen, okay?
No,
So meanwhile, what you gonna do?
we put in the work. We put in the work.
What y'all gonna do? You gonna get rid of capitalism? Okay, let's play that game. What y'all gonna do
We're
then?
not doing that.
What y'all gonna do?
We doing a workaround.
Okay. And let's say you get rid of capitalism
I'll tell
and
you
you have
what
another economic
I'll tell you
system.
what I'll do. Since you said what we do, I think that we can do two things at the same time, right? I think we can study the issues and we can also build things, right?
Okay.
And I mean, I would say I'm evident of that, but I think we can do both, and I think both are necessary.
Okay, but you didn't explain what that means though. So show me people who are doing both. Show me people who are,
I just said me.
show me people who are building
I think
an
Garvey studied the problem and also came
There-
up with conclusions.
There is no such thing as a human who is building an entrepreneurship and dismantling capitalism.
Oh no, I'm talking about you. I'm talking about as far as studying the issues, even talking about the issues, but also putting them into action.
We have centuries of black folks studying problems of exploitation of labor. That's centuries. That's how we have to do. But that's not the same thing as dismantling the capitalism people keep criticizing and then empowering our people. You're just not going to do that.
Well, when you mentioned Marcus Garvey, just sparking an idea that you can do without the system and build yourself. No, he mentioned Marcus Garvey.
Marcus Garvey was a black capitalist, and you have 4 UNIA members sitting in the room.
No, what I'm saying is building yourself up. Marcus Garvey didn't build himself up?
He did, but he built himself up as a black capitalist based on Booker T. Washington's Up from Slavery as one of the foundations of his work. He only spoke against capitalism for the same reason most blacks did back then and now. That's because they're thinking of Karl Marx's Communist Manifesto. And that's the only reason why.
When you say capitalism, you can look at it in many different ways.
Well,
You mentioned
I
capitalism.
talked about that already. I talked about how that's not synonymous with exploitation of labor. But unfortunately, most black folks do not look at capitalism in many different ways. They think about it as synonymous with exploitation. And I've explained that.
Yeah,
It's not
that's
synonymous. Like I said earlier, it's based on what Adam Smith explained in motor production. And that's why I tell black folks, recognize when you're wasting time on your own dime. You're literally the only one paying for it because non-blacks, they not wasting time on their dime on this stuff. They'll protest with you and they're still building wealth when they get back to what they're doing. That's based on capitalism. There's no wealth building that's not based on capitalism. So we're going to get back to this wealth building part. In conclusion, give one last comment, then we're going to get back to the wealth building part. Yes.
So I appreciate everything that you said, even though I disagree with a lot of it. But I do want to know, when we talk about in terms of solutions, what do you think about the bartering system? My problem with capitalism is that it values money over time, and what we're doing with like our nonprofit, we're trying to buy back people's time, and so they have that time to heal and to, we have to decolonize our minds before we can even move forward and build any type of institutions that are, meaningful for us. And so the brother over here talked about schools and how they contribute to capitalism, because you're going into school taught that you have to get good grades so you can get a good job, and then you have to go to college, and you come out of college with hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of debt.
Look.
And so you can't tell me that the system is not exploitive.
I can't keep black folks walking around with a list of oppressions. Like I said earlier,
But
we
so I
already
asked
know.
you first, what
We
did you
already
feel
know.
about the bartering system? Because the system as it stands does not work
Like
for
I
us
said,
as black folk.
there's various economic development approaches. If you read black economists, even African economists born and raised in African lands, there's various approaches, right? But if black folks are gonna keep talking about being colonized in the mind, are you the one colonizing your mind at this point? Because that's something that we have to self-reflect on. What are we teaching on our families at this point? Because if you are not,
you can't just disregard that.
So you
I
can't-
actually can. I don't want to hear about studies because I'm a sociologist and a criminologist who knows. And if you're going to be mad at me, I recommend you take that off on the oppressors that you're so mad about and not a black woman.
You don't care about studies now.
Well, don't be confused because if the studies, there's a reason why the studies about black folks focus on oppression and not solutions. If you don't understand how that's a form of brainwashing, then you've ignored everything I've said in the past hour.
So what about
I
the studies that
specifically-
focus on Jewish survivors of the Holocaust and how they inherited PTSD?
Jewish survivors
from-
of the Holocaust who are racially white.
Now, listen, because you
And
say
do you
you don't
understand?
want to hear black studies. So Jewish survivors of the Holocaust,
Jewish survivors of the
generations
Holocaust
and
who are
generations of
racially
their
white,
offspring
who are
have
racially white
PTSD.
and have benefited economically regarding racial identity.
Because
I have 20 years of teaching the sociology of race. I teach about the migration and the assimilation into whiteness.
So you
So
should
you have to
understand how
I understand very
conditioning.
well. But you want to make this a complaint.
Now you have to understand,
You
you
have
can't just
plenty of black
disregard
spaces.
what we're saying about the
Well, it's history.
conditioning
It's not-
of the mind. Like,
If
you
you want
cannot
to stay
just
stuck in,
disregard it.
again, this is a forum, this is a space where we talk about solutions,
Yes.
about building our people.
But we can't
And
talk
if
about
it's
true,
solutions
though.
until
You
get
can't
the
talk
right
about, you can't talk about
diagnosis.
solutions.
You can't
You
talk
can't
about
talk about
solutions
solutions.
until we make
You
the
can't
right
talk about
diagnosis.
solutions. Y'all need to hug in the corner and not talk about solutions. But the rest of us will talk about different approaches that our culture has met. And that's it.
That's doing what for us now?
No, I get what
It's
you
doing
guys-
nothing for you.
That's-
It's
that's
doing
doing-
nothing for
that's
you.
doing what for-
No, I get what
I
he's
don't
saying.
waste. I don't waste my time on everybody being evolved. I don't need that. Everyone won't be evolved. The focus is Black evolution, and some of y'all are not sleep on it, and that's fine. You had a question. Now I'm gonna conclude because I can't waste time on Black oppression talks. That's centuries. How much more do y'all need? You have one more comment.
I don't know if it was a comment or what you're saying.
Talk up so they can hear you.
What you're saying that, you know, America is at this point, and what one of your examples is saying that America in and of itself, due to 100 years ago, at this point, practice a little bit of socialism and capitalism simultaneously?
Yeah, for a century, yes.
Okay. And the other thing would be, hold on, let me get my start. Okay, and it's more of a, I think what I hear you saying is more of a victory of oppression more than of a understanding of oppression in terms of a strength base. So it sounds like you're trying to come from a strength based understanding that this may have happened. However, this is what you call a strength based approach to the plight that we see ourselves in now.
We have to have solutions as Black folks. We have centuries of problems, but again, those of us who celebrate all these Black trailblazers, we don't celebrate them because they're talking about problems. We're celebrating them because they're finding solutions for our people. That's why I talked about Maggie L. Walker. That's why I talked about Du Bois. That's why I talked about Harold Cruz. That's why we talk about Marcus Garvey. These are all people who tell you we already know the problems. We already know about colonialism. We already know about imperialism. By the way, the thing that most Black folks will talk about our thousands of years of Arab Muslim colonizers who introduced the colorism before racial categories existed. We know all about that.
But we don't
So
know
how
the
much,
method.
don't talk over me. So how much do you need to really digest that? How much do you really need to digest that? And this will continue brainwashing our people because our people feel like they have to walk out and protest when the real protest should be when we don't have conclusions for our people. So here's my conclusion, because I want y'all to see all these illustrations of different forms of brainwashing when you've been told, oh, what, you don't want to talk about oppression? Well, I'm done with you.
Right, we already know it.
They want us to not want solutions. They want us to really be stuck in talking about oppression and be mad when that's not always the topic for our people. So back to my point. Think about what you have here in Baltimore. Think about how that spreads across the nation. What are some resources we have? You can't just be mad about who's running for mayor, who's on the school board, who's this and that. What are we contributing to changes? Because we can never wait for decision makers. We can never wait for politicians, right? Of course, I'm a big supporter of Black folks going to medical and health professionals. I actually help Black folks to be informed patients. I take Black folks to the offices for appointments. But that means you have to go in there as informed, right? So these are all ways to have solutions. We already know about problems that persist.
Every day.
The problems keep persisting partly because we have been taught to focus on the problems and not the solutions. So again, how to economically start and economically develop. My financial planner, who's amazing, he does this for Black folks. He's a Black man. Again, find in-person and virtual classes, programs, and events to talk about financial planning and wealth building. This whole discussion we've had, we started off with the exercise and we wrote down what is your financial planning, What are you planning for yourself? How does it impact your family? How does it impact your collective? How does it impact your culture? What foundation does it lay for our people, for future generations? Find legally approved financial planners, legally approved tax preparers, like I said earlier. You need basic planning advice. So avoid people who think that everyone's an expert. They tend to use big words, right? And they say a whole lot of stuff. What they want you to do is say, I have no idea what you're talking about, but I trust you. Okay?
Yeah.
Instead, you need to find someone who is prepared to answer questions. All right? That's what you really need. Avoid supposed experts who assume falsehoods such as everyone knows this, everyone already does this, and this is common sense. That happens a lot for Black folks. It happens in Baltimore. I've had this experience myself in Baltimore and across the nation. Black folks will sometimes find someone who does investments, financial planning, and the person will explain something in a very condescending way. They'll be like, well, what I'm about to explain is like common sense. So of course, you don't want to feel stupid, so you're like, yeah, I got it. Yeah, I got it. Yeah, I feel you. No, good and well, you have no idea what the person's talking about, okay? And they'll send you emails with all these documents. And I always tell Black folks, don't ever sign anything without reading it.
Right.
But if you don't understand what's on it, even if it's in the language you speak, you still don't mean you understand the language, right? So you need someone who's going to be a financial planner, financial advisor, who's actually going to explain what in the world are you talking about? Meaning they understand it enough to explain it to you, okay? Find someone who does one-on-one conversations. So my financial advisor actually talked to another financial advisor, and her advice to me, she's a Black woman, her advice to me was to make sure that Black folks in Baltimore in particular have one-on-one conversations with financial advisors and investors. In other words, not just a whole bunch of people who want to do emails with you, or not just a bunch of people who want to see you at events and give you a business card, and then when it's time to talk, they're like, I'm busy, whatever. Find someone who do one-on-one conversations. They don't do one size fits all. They know that we as a people, Black folks in particular, have different starting points. So if you want financial advice, you might come to them and say, I literally have zero in my bank account. I don't even have a savings account open. I have no idea about anything. You need someone who knows how to start at that point. So you need someone who knows how to not do a one-size-fits-all, okay? A lot of financial planners are accustomed to people in certain occupations, so they're used to people who have a lot of money. They're concerned because they get a percentage of it. They're like, yes. But you need someone who knows how to reach people with different backgrounds, okay? As far as investments, my financial advisor says we want our people to look at simple investment. Don't get bad, meaning if you get some options of to start off with like $100 or $10, you can say, I'm gonna start with $10. I'm gonna invest $10. And we're gonna see where it goes in about 5 months. It might go to $11 in 5 months, but that's something that builds your comfort level. If you have a credit union, for example, you can have this thing on your account where when you use your debit card, a percentage goes into your savings account. Okay? These are all types of ways to do small options to learn how to save money and learn how to build investments. So it doesn't scare you to feel like building wealth means you put in like $100, $1,000, $10,000. You literally just start small. Okay? And don't ever feel stupid. Okay? Because $10 is more than zero. All right? So again, simple wealth building, building your savings and investments does not mean that your goal is to be a millionaire. I'm saying it again. Simple savings and investments does not mean, Black folks, that you want to ever be a millionaire. Okay? We have so many Black folks who have been taught that you only save money in your bra and your pillowcase, whatever, or if you save money, you're somehow betraying your people, or you're subscribing to the government. We still have black folks who believe you don't want to have a bank account because you're avoiding the government, all types of things like I mentioned earlier. Look here. A lot of people who claim to be anti-establishment and all the other stuff, some of them have a lot more money than you would ever know. That includes people who claim to be anti-capitalists. If you found out about their occupation, their 401k, and all that other stuff, you would find that some of them have a lot of wealth that they're keeping secret. And if they did not have the wealth, they have friends and family who would support them if something happened to them. That's why I do not want any black folks to ever fall for the okie doke. Okay? Yes, sister.
I have a question. So, would you say like real estate? Would you say that real estate will fall into like the investment aspect too, or?
It can. The real estate part is something I'd be much more careful about. So, for example, in Baltimore, people are talking about buying up property for $1. I would first talk to an attorney if I did anything like that. Because we've always had black collectives in Baltimore who bought up property in Baltimore, bought up row homes and stuff like that. But even then, you want legal advice. A lot of people who do that have some kind of wealth backed up already. They have some kind of foundation that they're using. And a lot of them have collectives because we have entire nonprofits that do that together. So I just recommend knowing that a lot of us might have people we know in our families who bought a property. Buying a property also means you have to renovate it. Having renters means somebody better be the landlord or something, right? So just remember that that investment is a huge deal. You want to include all paperwork if you decide to do that, but first get an attorney who will help you. Don't believe someone just because they say it sounds so interesting and easy. Okay? All right. All right, last but not least here, the cash flow planning here. Where should your cash be saved? Where should your cash go? Are there emergency funds? For black folks, I'm very adamant about emergency funds. You don't have to tell everybody you have emergency funds because unfortunately, as a people, when you tell someone you got emergency funds, that's let me borrow money from us.
Your phone become the emergency.
Like Biz Marquis said, can I borrow $1? Ooh, you were stalling now. They caught the vapors, you know. So don't do that part, okay? Don't tell everybody that you got the emergency funds. Don't tell everybody. But in retirement funds, also health funds. So if something happens regarding your health, I tell black folks to go to the medical and health appointments for preventive measures, but also have funds for emergency measures. So I believe that's an example of multitasking, like Dr. Sarr said. Have your regular appointments, but also have emergency funds if you have a medical emergency, okay? All right, so this is just the last part that we don't have to talk about that because I know we're going to run out of time here. But these are just things that I truly believe in. The same way we have black folks, fish fries, cookouts, and other gatherings we do, like hip hop nights, I do believe we should also have these financial planning discussions. Why? Because we have collectives like Black Chambers of Commerce, we have black nonprofits, black organizations that have these kinds of discussions. They tend not to oftentimes have the black cultural discussion. But this is where I recommend that we integrate the different approaches to understand that we're building wealth, meaning you'll still maybe feel that you're living paycheck to paycheck. That's because you're living below your means intentionally. It doesn't mean it's instant, okay? This can take years in progress. So you feel like you're living paycheck to paycheck because you still have that minimal amount in your checking account, but what's building is your savings account. So once you start building that savings account, pretend it does not exist.
Yeah.
That's one thing we always have to refer to people. It does not exist because it's there mysteriously. Yes, sister.
Yeah, I just wanted your thoughts on insurance, like life insurance or anything like that. I didn't see that in your planning.
Yeah, he doesn't like insurance.
I was just asking you because I didn't see that. I didn't see that in your financial plan, and I was just asking.
Yeah,
not
so
saying I need them.
Yeah, I was actually going to put life insurance up there, but life insurance is very complex because most people do not get life insurance. I'm a big supporter of getting it, but it's difficult because, like, I don't want to give a shout out to different life insurance companies, but they sometimes will make you feel so rushed to make a quick decision on life insurance. And so people like make a really quick decision and they don't read all the documents given to them, right? And he knows because, you know, you do work in that.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, senior citizens have it even worse because people wait till they're senior citizen to get life insurance. So that's just one thing that we want our people to understand about life insurance. Start researching it now. Speak with your bank about it. Some banks offer experts who will give you comparisons, like they'll research it for you and say, here's a list. Some banks offer life insurance, but they'll also give you comparison groups so you can choose for yourself. If your bank does not do that, this is where you just research it yourself. Make sure it's a place that has a legitimate website and people who will talk to you on the phone, or you can go to an office. Make sure it's a place that I do recommend referrals. It goes back to our social capital topic, right? I do believe in networking to hear what people have used already so you can trust them and do that. And while you're doing the life insurance part, also do the living will part. So get that living will stamped. Doesn't mean you have to always get it stamped brand new, but get it stamped so that people will know if something happens, I've written it down. Y'all can fight all y'all want to, but here it is. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And most black folks don't get any of this stuff, unfortunately, including health insurance, even through their job. If they have health insurance, they don't use it as they should. So the life insurance part is complex. And did you bring your business card with you?
I have some.
Oh.
I thought you ran them out of here.
No,
Y'all told me so.
No, I had to use the phone. It takes a lot more than it brought me out.
I was like, you know, got him walking out of here. Because I was going to get you all life insurance anyway. All right. All right. So here's how to contact me. So we can talk about all these different issues. And contacting me is something that is developing our people. A lot of times when people interview me, like Dr. Asad was talking about, people interview me a lot. They want to talk to me a lot. But the problem tends to happen when I bring solutions to the topic. People love to talk to black folks and interview us when we talk about oppressions. They love that a whole lot. They want me to talk about racism. But when I do work where I don't even mention racism, I don't even talk about non-blacks, people are confused because they're just not accustomed to that. This is where I want our people to self-focus, self-progress. It doesn't mean we're blaming ourselves for everything. It means that we decided that ain't we tired of wasting time all the time on stuff? Don't we want to do some stuff? Because we have black folks who do a lot of work. Like this is what y'all do here. Y'all doing a lot of work, right? And so therefore, that's what we have to put more into. And there you go.
We actually turn it off.
Give a round of applause, y'all. Give a round of applause. Thanks, Dr. Kimya Nuru Dennis. I told y'all, you know, she gonna come with a scalp. You know, and I think, you know, I agree with the idea that we have to look at solutions, right? And I think that is really important because it can be frustrating when you see how people get stuck. Now, for me, as a psychotherapist, I also understand the importance of really dealing with the issues and the trauma and the hurt and the pain. Because if people are stuck, they're stuck for a reason. But I do understand what she's trying to impress upon us is that we must get unstuck. And we can look at an issue all day and every day and continuously talk about it, but that is indicative that we are stuck. But I do understand that's a process that I have a little bit more patience than Dr. Dennis because that's what I do for a living.
We have 5 centuries of patience.
I think it took more than 5 centuries to get us there.
Well, regarding race, it's 5 centuries.
Yeah. So I do understand what she's saying. I think it's important that we come and we hear a diversity of thought, Because I do think that there's many things, although again, I told you, like I said, I don't agree with everything she says, but I think that everything that she says, if we can open our minds up to understand that this is coming from a good place. You understand? It's coming from a place that you want us to be free. Whether or not you agree with the approach, I'm talking about Dr. Dennis. You off the stage now. Hold up. I built this place. I'm the psychotherapist. She thought she was up like, I'm the sociologist, don't ask no questions. You know, so I said it. But anyway, I appreciate her coming out and give her another round of applause. Look. So y'all hear some of the things I don't agree with her about, right? But look, I already knew her answers because we always talk.
Yes.
All right, give her a round of applause. Thank y'all for coming out. Dr. Nuru Dennis, thanks for coming out. We'll have you again. Peace and pop.
When you claim your Africanness, you're going to get your mind back. Black and I'm proud. Claim your African. Black and I'm proud. I'm telling you. When you claim your Africanness, you're going to get your mind back. Black and I'm proud. Claim your African. Black and I'm proud. I'm telling you. When you claim your Africanness, you're going to get your mind back. Black and I'm proud. Claim your African. Black and I'm proud. I'm telling you. Become a part of it. Embrace it. 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 When you claim your Africanness, you're going to get your mind back. Black and I'm proud. Claim your African. Black and I'm proud. I'm telling you. When you claim your Africanness, you're going to get your mind back. Black and I'm proud. Claim your African. Black and I'm proud. I'm telling you. Black and I'm proud. When you claim black and I'm proud, you're going to get your mind back. When you claim your Africanness, you're going to get your mind back. Black and I'm proud. Black and I'm proud. When you claim your Africanness, you're going to get your mind back. Black and I'm proud. Claim your African. Black and I'm proud. I'm telling you. When you claim your Africanness, you're going to get your mind back. Black and I'm proud. Claim your African. Black and I'm proud. I'm telling you. When you claim your Africanness, you're going to get your mind back. Black and I'm proud. Claim your African. Black and I'm proud. I'm telling you. Become a part of it. Embrace it.